Hello, Emily. I want to take the opportunity first to thank you for your question. Every time I receive questions from my colleagues, it causes me to think and it causes me to develop a deeper understanding of the concepts in which I espouse. So let me take a look at your question. You had some questions about whether or not uh, young non-commissioned officers or young officers are actually leaders in that they are in a position to influence their subordinates. The first thing we have to do in order for me to really adequately answer that question is differentiate between the person and the position. I personally surmise that there are no leadership positions in the military. There are only management positions. Now, does that mean that there are no leaders in the military? No. Why do I say that? I say that because leadership has absolutely nothing to do with position. Leadership has to do with the person. Now, you can take a person and put them in prison, give them absolutely no position, and yet they can still bring a nation to its knees, a la Nelson Mandela. In fact, those of us who have studied criminal justice can tell you that the people who run the street gangs, Crips, Bloods, MS-13, Black Gangster Disciples, these people, the majority of them who influence multi-billion-dollar organizations are locked away in places like Pelican Bay, maximum security prison. They are locked away 23 out of 24 hours every day. No telephone, no internet. Yet, these people run multi-billion-dollar organizations. So see, we must understand that leadership has absolutely nothing to do with what position you're in. It has to do with who you are as a person. So, are there young NCOs who are leaders? Yes. Are there young officers who are leaders? Yes. Are there senior officers who are leaders? Yes. Senior NCOs who are leaders? Yes. Does it have anything to do with the position that they are in? Absolutely not. Because in order to be in a leadership position, let me turn this music down a little bit. In order to be in a leadership position, you have to have carte blanche control over your resources. Because what do leaders do? Leaders create a vision, and then they chase that vision. like Alexander the Great. So if you're not chasing your own vision, you're not a leader. If you're operating inside of somebody else's vision, nope. It's not that you're not a leader, you're not in a leadership position. Now, does that mean that there are people who are in management positions who choose to lead? Yes, there are people who are in management positions who choose to lead. However, the problem with that is you're going to continuously run into the lines. It's like you want to be an artist and paint a beautiful picture. However, you're in a coloring book, which has lines that you are supposed to color inside of the lines. And if you try to be or try to exercise leadership without being in a leadership position, you are going to constantly run into the lines. You're going to constantly find yourself coloring outside of the lines. And that is generally going to irritate the people who drew the lines. That is basically a small picture of my entire military career. I was constantly drawing outside of the lines. I was constantly innovating. Let me give you a prime example. When I was an instructor, I made it my business that no student in my class would fail. I don't care if we had to stay late. I don't care if they had personal problems at home and I had to sit down with them after class and figure out what was going on between them and their girlfriend so that they could focus during the class time. I made it my business that every student would pass. It wasn't my responsibility to take soldiers out and run with them so they could pass the physical training test. That wasn't my responsibility as an instructor. But I did it. Because of that, my students had a 94% average GPA. 94%, highest ever in school history. No failures. You would think that I would have been celebrated for that. No. What ended up happening, I ended up with what was called a 15-6 investigation. I ended up in the commander's office. Sergeant Hazard, what you have done is impossible. There's no way all of your students can be scoring this high on exams. So we're going to put you under a 90-day investigation to find out what you're doing wrong, because you have to be doing something wrong. Fast forward at the end of 90 days. I'm back in the commander's office again. Sergeant Hazard, you know you haven't violated any rules. But here's our problem. We have 600 students here at the school. Your class size is 30. I've got 600 students clamoring to get into your class. It is causing a disruption because all of the students who have other instructors, they all want to be in your class and they're disgruntled that they are not in your class. And oh, by the way, of course, your peers are disgruntled. Your excellence is causing a problem. So you have one or two choices. A, you can decide to not be excellent and stay here, or you can decide to continue to be excellent, but you're not going to be able to stay here at the school. Being who I am, I chose to leave because excellence is who I am. Excellence is what I do. And I'm not going to tamper down my excellence for other people's laziness because they don't want to go the extra mile. You want me to simply be average. That's not in my DNA. That's not in my nature. So, because I exercised leadership when I was not in a position of leadership, I was really in a position of management. They simply wanted me to present the information to the soldiers. If they pass, they pass. If they fail, they fail. And everybody's happy. We all go on. Everybody puts a check in the block. That is not who I am. I will never be that person. It's just not in my nature. But that is what the military requires. They want everybody to march lockstep. They want everybody to be plug and play. We pull one colonel out, we put another colonel in. He opens up the SOP, the standard operation procedure. The same thing should happen, no matter what colonel, what general, what sergeant major, whatever. Plug and play. That is management. There's no such thing as a plug and play leader. A leader looks at what is going on right now and addresses what is the best way to develop, what's the best way for me to get to my own personal vision. In that school, my own personal vision was no student will fail. My own personal vision was every student will have a GPA above 90%. That was my vision. That wasn't written anywhere in the constitution of the school. That wasn't written anywhere in SOP. That was my vision. And I used the resources of the school and my own personal resources to achieve that vision, which you would think would be something that would be celebrated. But in the confines of the military, that type of thought process is not celebrated. You're considered a maverick, and eventually you're going to end up with situations like the colonel told me. Either you're going to decide to become average like everybody else, or you're going to have to leave the school because your excellence is causing a problem. So, yes, any person who has the right stuff can be a leader regardless of the position that they're in. Let's take a look at something else that you said here. Leadership and management being complete opposites. Absolutely. Let me clarify that by saying this. You cannot be an effective leader without also being an effective manager. Leaders drive innovation. Leaders drive change. Managers maintain the status quo. Period. Managers are concerned with X's, O's, numbers. Leaders are invested in people because leaders understand that regardless of the X's and the O's, the X factor is the human factor. You can put two fighters in the boxing ring and you can line up the X's and the O's and say, by strength, by speed, by record, by whatever metrics that you want to use, fighter A should be able to beat fighter B. We've watched this happen in boxing. We've watched it happen in football. We've watched it happen in baseball. We've watched it happen in all kinds of sports. But what happens? Fighter B somehow, through the X factor, figures out how to win. That is what leaders understand. That is why leadership is the highest paid profession on the planet. Complete opposites, absolutely. A leader is constantly chasing a vision. A manager, his job is to color in between the lines. His job is to take the resources of the leader and bring him back a product. The product that the leader is asking for. Not the product that the manager thinks should be come or be done with the resources. But what does the leader want? Now, a leader could care less what the manager wants. A leader can care less what society wants. Leaders develop their own vision. And here's the kicker. Most leaders, they are willing to die for the cause. They are literally willing to die. That's how committed you have to be to birth an idea from thought to reality. The same way a woman has to lay down during childbirth and lay her life on the line to push that child into the world. And when I did my research, I found out that the pain that a woman goes through during childbirth is equivalent to pouring a 5-gallon bucket of gasoline over her head and setting her on fire. So you have to ask yourself, why is a woman willing to go through that? You know why? Because that child that is in her stomach is real to her long before it is ever born. She has already held that child in her arms. She's already brushed his or her hair. She's already watched that son run a touchdown. She's already watched that daughter walk down the aisle to get married. It's real to her. And for leaders, the vision that they have of what they're trying to create is so real to them that they are willing to die. Martin Luther King, I might not get there with you, but I've been to the mountaintop. And we as a people will get to the promised land. What is he telling you? He's telling you, I'm willing to die. Nelson Mandela, what was he willing to sacrifice in order to bring down apartheid He sacrificed his life, 28 and a half years of hard labor, imprisonment. He sacrificed his marriage. He sacrificed watching his children grow up. That's the difference between real leaders and managers. Managers don't have that kind of investment. They don't have that kind of passion. Managers are plug and play. You pull one manager out, you put another one in the same position, you basically going to get the same results. Not the same with a true leader. So yes, leaders drive change, managers maintain the status quo. And those two things are diametrically opposed. But a leader must be able to manage. Because if a leader cannot maintain status quo until it is time to change, he will create an environment of chaos. It is like a combustion engine. A combustion engine that cannot control the explosion that is going on inside of it is no longer an engine, it is a bomb. And you have leaders who do not have management skills, that they come into organizations and they basically, in their aftermath, it looks like an explosion happened. They may have had good intentions, but in the aftermath, you end up with an explosion. Drama. You end up not accomplishing what you need to accomplish. So while as a manager may not need the skills of a leader definitely needs the skills of a manager. And the skill sets and the mentality of leaders and managers are without a doubt diametrically opposed, which causes cognitive dissonance. And I would say only 10% of the population has the intellect to be able to hold two opposing thoughts in their brains and be able to deal with them at the same time. So that right there wipes out 90% of the population from being able to lead, because they cannot deal with cognitive dissonance. I appreciate your question. If anything that I said here was unclear or I didn't quite answer the question to your satisfaction, feel free to reach back out to me. Leadership for me is not just a passing thought or a subject for intellectual banter. I run 3 corporations. Leadership for me is serious. Leadership for me has been what I have been engaged in for my entire adult life, since the age of 17, when I raised my hand and swore to protect the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So thank you for your question. I enjoyed taking the time to expatiate and give you the information that you may have been interested in. Once again, thanks. God bless.